Hello and welcome to today's episode of Market Talk. We're delighted to be joined by Gary Hunter, who is the Deputy Executive Principal at Westminster Kingsway College, and also Alex Bradley, Director of Restaurant Design Associates. Hi there both, thank you for joining us this week. Gary, let's start with you. Obviously your college that you work at is renowned for the catering and hospitality courses that it runs. It's a fantastic breeding ground for new industry talent. Can you share a little bit about what it's been like over the last 8 months and how you've really kind of been adapting to a COVID world, as it were?
Yes, thank you, and that's very, very kind for you to say that as well. We went into lockdown, or the first lockdown. I think it was around the 20th of March. We had a pretty good idea, maybe about 2 weeks beforehand, that it was probably going to work out like that. The signs that were coming from the Department for Education, we suspected that. Ironically, we have a teaching and learning strategy that we write and review every 2 to 5 years. And part of that strategy was to try and create a blended learning solution where we would do mostly face-to-face and partly online. And that online bit would be about 25% by 2025. Within 2 weeks, we went 100% online. So we absolutely smashed that one. So 2025 is no longer needed as a target for us. And that meant in those 2 weeks before we actually went onto a full lockdown, of training up around 450 members of staff and around 13,000 students to receive their teaching wholly online in their own homes as such, which then presented us with many difficulties, not because nobody was skilled to deliver that, because we found that there were issues around digital poverty, many issues around our students. To start off with, 30% of our students didn't have access to Wi-Fi or a laptop or a device that was meaningful enough for them to achieve a real engagement of teaching and learning. So we had to do a lot of work in terms of funding these students to either receive that digital capability or vouchers so that they can buy that digital capability and get them right in front of us to do online learning. So that was really tough in those first few weeks just to see where we were at. We were doing lots of student surveys just to see how they were feeling, staff surveys as well, or about well-being and mindfulness as well, and just to do everything that we possibly could to support everybody at that point in time. We thought it was only going to be about 2 weeks, get through to Easter, half term, and then maybe after that we'd come back and everything would be okay again. And here we are in the second lockdown. But the second lockdown is a lot easier for us because we're still teaching face-to-face as much as we possibly can, and dealing with minor breakouts from every now and then, and just continuing to teach as much as we possibly can at the moment. Obviously, with our 2 restaurants being closed down, which is a bit of a shame, but we understand the reasons why, and it worked around that. So we are still doing food service in one of the restaurants, but we're doing it to a closed door of students and staff instead. So we're getting around things and getting around those situations.
Sure,
let Alexander come in there, I think.
Well, just one more question I was going to ask you, Gary, which is, I came to see you a couple of years back at the college, and you showed me around the facilities there, and one of the things that was immediately apparent was just the level of sort of practical teaching that goes on, and the students are moving around in kitchen facilities that resemble what they would see in the industry. Presumably that practical aspect of it is kind of really taking a hit at the moment.
It has. Not now, it hasn't, because we're still getting students in, so they get all of that practical work still done. We have to modify it slightly, so obviously a lot of that is centered around the running of our 2 busy restaurants. but we still have the kitchens open, we still have the restaurants, service teams teaching and learning and doing that practical aspect. We just need to just change it slightly. One of the things, obviously, when we went down to that first lockdown, a lot of the practical work just stopped. And as you quite rightly say about our rotation systems, where they go from kitchen area to kitchen area every 6 weeks or so, we were having whole groups of students missing out some of those rotational areas. So they've had to come back, and what we've had to do is to really short, sharp bridging courses to get those skills back into the students, and that's been quite tough. So as the students have progressed from last year to the new academic year, we've had to upskill them pretty quickly to get them to a point where we expect them to be at in September, but actually get them there for October, as well as still teaching them the new curriculum. So that's been very tough for us. But we're getting there, and that's why we were determined, as part of this second lockdown, to really maintain that practical element as much as we possibly can, because it's crucial for our students. After all, everything that they do is vocational, and only a certain amount of stuff that we can do is going to be face-to-face or online and theory-based. So it's crucial we continue to do that. I know every college up and down the country have been playing around with that conundrum as well. We were the first college in the UK to reopen our restaurants. By the 28th of September, both our restaurants were open, and our atrium cafeteria was open as well. And that was great, because it was important for our students to understand what it's going to be like for them out in the industry when they go into their part-time work eventually, or when they go full-time out in the industry, and having to cope with COVID-19 and the guidelines and the regulations around safe working practices. So we have to be able to create the groundwork for that and lead on that as much as we possibly can. But also, I felt we had to shoulder that responsibility and open those restaurants up alongside our colleagues in hospitality, and be part of that commitment as well, and and feel some of their pain that they were going through in a smaller way, just so that our students could be part of that. I thought that was really important for us.
Great stuff, Gary. Sounds like there's a lot going on there. So just to bring you into the conversation, Alex, RDA is actually quite strong in the educational sector, because I think you guys did a major project at Cranfield University just before the first lockdown. So how has that sector been since, and how has it compared to all of the others that you work within?
It's been quite similar to the others, to be honest. As Guy was saying, a lot of the students are now brought up to be ready to sort of hit the ground running in terms of a real life business and industry sector, or whether it's a hospitality sector sort of education that they're getting. So a lot of the education facilities that we deal with and all of our clientele, they have the same challenges that the business and industry sector has, that our sort of NHS and healthcare sector has, that our high street sector has. That it's just this element of unknown. So they're not sure when to invest, how much to invest, should they fix things and try and keep it ticking over rather than looking at doing new installations. So we've seen a lot of sort of nervousness. Confidence hasn't quite returned just yet. So the majority of our projects probably were put back in education that we had going on. We had a few large university projects which we were pretty sure were going to be happening this summer. Obviously they haven't, due to the pandemic. It's the institutions at the end of the day. They need to earn money, and they need to have money available to make these investments for world-class facilities. With no students on site, it's no different from a restaurant with no customers. They need to rely on this income. Clearly, Gary will probably tell you more than anybody else.
Yes.
To be able to deliver world-class facilities. We like to be part of that, but we totally understand that this year, unfortunately, wasn't the right time for it. So we have seen a lot being put back because of that.
Yeah, and how has RDA coped itself? Because with the 2 lockdown periods now, how quickly did you manage to adapt? And has the second lockdown period been any different to the first for you?
Yeah, it's interesting question. The first lockdown period was quite sort of interesting when it first started. Very similar again to Gary. I remember the day well. All of the staff going into the head office, where we're taking kind of monitors home so that they're all set up to work remotely anyway, but have a proper setup in the house. And it was kind of this vibe of, okay, we'll see you in a couple of weeks when this is all blows over. And here we are, kind of up to Christmas, wondering if we're going to see our families. So it's taken its toll on everybody, definitely. Certainly on the business as well. You know, obviously we're in the same boat as everybody else. Kind of turnover is down. Cash flow is more difficult to manage than it usually is, but we've adapted. We've put a big emphasis on our design work rather than the fit out work, while the investments are just not there for that sort of thing. We've done a lot in design, sort of chargeable work to keep the cash flow going, to keep cash receipts coming in, everything that we can do. We've diversified sort of the projects that we're doing, so less emphasis actually on sort of catering works this year. Even we've been doing office fit outs, a couple of office refurbishments, new office designs for new clients who we've dealt with previously, who are looking to invest, because I think that it's a good time while there's nobody in these office spaces. So we've really kind of pushed the boat out in terms of what we can do with our team in house. We're designers, we're space planners, we're problem solvers, we're interior designers. We can adapt those skill sets and apply them to different industries quite easily. So we've been quite fortunate in that regard. We're also quite fortunate in our overheads aren't massive for the business, because we subcontract out a lot of what we do in terms of all the fabrication, all of the on-site installations, transport. We only actually have the project managers in-house and the design teams in-house, which we do very well, but it obviously helps when we don't have as many mouths to feed times like this. Finally, the biggest help that we've seen has been through our supply chain. All of the suppliers for the catering industry sort of they've all stood up together. I've been told by numerous suppliers, from UK to Germany to the different sort of suppliers that we use through the industry. They've all told me the line that they think we are kind of in this together. They've given us the payment terms if we need them. They've helped us with deliveries, delayed invoicing, working out payment plans with clients. They've been really helpful. Really helped us get through this and made our jobs easier as well.
And Alex, I know you're based in the northeast, but you do a lot of work around the country. You know, when this lockdown ends, there's every chance, it seems likely, that we're going to go back into a tiered system again. How much does that tiered system impact your business and where the business comes from, or how much did that create any issues before the current lockdown was introduced?
Yeah, it's a tricky one actually, because we have kind of half of our team are actually based in this office in the northeast, and then the other half are remote around kind of Manchester, Stockport, London, all over really. So it's kind of, we usually ring them, and before we kind of send them out onto the road, or we've got this really good lead for you to have a look at, it's this extra level that we have to go through. We have to check what stage are you in at the moment, where you live, can you actually leave, can you go and visit these people. There's just all of these extra steps to go through, and that's before we've even thinking about the logistics of going onto site, to serving an area that may be occupied, the health and safety protocols that we have to put in place for that. Programs for works are generally extended because we can't have as many trades on site at one time, can't have as many bodies on site, and certainly in smaller confined spaces. So it is tricky, but we've generally seen the work still coming through from a decent spread in the UK, including Scotland. So we haven't been impacted as such as some areas have shut down more than others in terms of still thinking ahead to the future. So I think that's quite positive. Sure,
okay, that's good to hear. And Gary, just bringing the conversation back to yourself, I was keen to know what the mood is like among your students at the moment, particularly if you take the students that are going into their final year now. Is there a concern that when it comes to particularly those taking the chef courses, there just won't be the opportunities for them in the industry that there perhaps would have been when they began their course?
We thought when we went through into the recruitment and the enrolment process in September, that we would be looking at a downfall of students coming into our first year, because they'd be put off by what they've seen with the hospitality industry absolutely getting hammered. But we hit target. In fact, we just came in just over target, and our targets are probably the biggest target for full-time first-year students in the country. It's in the hundreds. And so that's been really, really good for us, and we were very surprised about that. The enthusiasm that the students have for the industry already is very, very strong. And yes, they are worried. Our graduating students from last year, it was tough for them to go from being offered a job, and a lot of our students are offered job roles come January time, even before they finish their academic study with us and pass the qualification. They have at least one, if not two, job offers in their back pocket. And so some of our students had those withdrawn. And so we had to work with them to try and find alternative employment. And I'm not knocking the employers at all, because they had to do what they had to do for the livelihoods of their businesses. And we totally understand that. But eventually we found jobs for every single student that graduated last year. It took a while, and it went into October, but they are there and are in the industry. We hope, fingers crossed, that when we come out of December and we're into January, that somehow the government will find a way to reopen the hospitality industry and really kickstart that business again. We are crucial to the well-being of the country. So it is important that we get hospitality back on its feet again, and then our students can then get jobs and contribute to the economy. I think it's really important, not just for us, but for every college up and down the country at the moment to achieve that. So it's not easy, but we've been lucky. The students are there. They are worried, but equally at the same time, they love the industry. They take on board the enthusiasm that the team have for the industry, and they absolutely love it. So there is apprehension, but equally there is real passion to get out there, to get a job and make a difference.
Absolutely. I hope that positive attitude will continue, Gary. So in terms of, say, the kitchen equipment that you have fitted at Westminster Kingsway, how have you managed to kind of keep that up to date throughout the lockdown periods, and how engaged are you with getting students trained on the most up-to-date equipment at the moment?
This is something that's, I won't say it's been a problem. It's a challenge for us, because as every college is, we are government funded, and we have to find other ways of increasing our funding as we go along. And we've always worked closely with partners in the industry, sponsors with the industry, to help us to do that. And so we work closely with Bradley Smokers. We have many other equipment suppliers as well that work alongside us, so that we can put in front of the student some of the most up-to-date kit that we possibly can, because it's important, incredibly important, that they work with this kit, and they work with the equipment that they're going to be working with as soon as they get out into the industry. So we're talking to suppliers all the time on various projects that they can do with our students. Not just suppliers in terms of kit, but suppliers in terms of ingredients as well. We have long-standing relationship with companies such as Calabao and Boiron. The Chef magazine do a lot of work with us to help support that too. And then, so the more that we can plug into the industry and create these strong relationships, the more important it is for our students to be able to plug in and engage with that too, and then they get more out of it. So that is a real strong facet for the whole team. And we've updated kitchens every 2 or 3 years, purely because we need new kit in there, not specifically because the students bash it to pieces, but because we have something new comes out, thermomixers, Paco jets, you name it. We need that kit there in front of our students so that they can use it and get used to it. And our lecturers as well. We need to update ourselves. on some of this new kit that's coming out. So it's crucial that we're not just seen to be sitting there and, you know, saucepans and wooden spoons and making bechamel sauce all the time. It's far beyond that now. This is fit for purpose, fit for the industry.
Good stuff, Gary. Coming back to you, Alex, as I kind of drawing that thread together of the supplier relationships, and you mentioned before that a lot of them have emphasised that we're all in it together. How have your relationships with catering equipment suppliers evolved and progressed over this last few months? Have they been on a positive upward curve, or have you seen some kind of drop away and go quiet?
No, everything has been positive, to be honest. Given it does sound quite surprising, given the negativity that we've all faced. But we haven't had any, you know, fallout, so we haven't had anybody drop off our supply chain. We haven't been looking elsewhere to source other products. Everything's been very sort of amicably agreed, and we've tried to keep lines of communication open every single week with suppliers, just to tell them why orders are delayed that we're expecting to get this year from us. Why our spend is down when it's usually been kind of up and up for the last 2 years now. But everybody's quite understanding of it. Everyone's got the same challenges, I think, this year. You know, we work with the biggest catering suppliers in the world, basically, in terms of catering equipment. Most of them are definitely on our food supply chain. We do a lot through some of the biggest buying consortiums in the UK as well. So it's a good discussion that's needed, that we have quite often sort of senior stakeholders with the companies. And if we've got problems in even outstanding invoices that we can't pay to terms just because our clients aren't paying us the terms, and it's getting passed down the chain, then we just open up the lines of communication. We believe honesty is clearly the best policy when it comes to this sort of thing. Explain to them what the problem is, what the repayment plan is, what we can do by our clients, and like I say, everyone's been very amicable with it. Hopefully that's the situation everybody's kind of experiencing in the industry. I think it kind of is from what I'm speaking to, sort of some of our competitors, even some other sort of food design houses and project management firms, and the rest of our suppliers. Everybody seems to be in the same boat here. No one's expecting things to shift overnight at the moment, but everyone's quite respectful of trying to do a little bit as often as we can.
And Alex, you were commissioned recently to do a piece of work looking at what sort of the restaurant of the future might look like, and taking into account obviously what's happened over the past few months and the impact of COVID on future sort of restaurant design. What were the kind of core conclusions to come from that? It
was a very interesting panel, actually, discussion that we were kind of invited to initially from one of our big clients, ISS. So ISS are a facilities management company, but also do contract catering. We've got a strong contract catering on. So it was a mixture of the contract catering side of the business and the facilities management side of the business, who had formed a sort of task force, incorporated of not just the UK team, but teams from sort of America and other countries as well, to have some input in this. And we had a good range of people on this task force, not just from a kind of operations and directors side of point of view, but we had people who are on the ground operating these facilities as well, running these day-to-day kitchens and serveries for staff, for students in education, for healthcare environments. So we had a really good panel discussion to form a list of key points and key considerations. Those key considerations for the next step were graded from a grading of 1 to 10, everybody within the panel. And then we focused on what everybody recognised as being the most important that we needed to fix, or at least we needed to have solutions to, should problems arise or become greater. Key findings were quite interesting, actually. One of the main sort of takeaways from it was that it's largely comes down to a confidence issue with the end user or customer or student or patient, depending on what the facility is. So choice was the biggest outcome of that. A large emphasis on giving everybody choice, and there's a choice how to go about getting served, how to go about getting a drink from a vending machine, how to go about ordering, how to go about leaving a restaurant. Are you walking past people? So we came up with an ideal system, which was sort of, it gives them kind of 3 or 4 different routes, depending on what the facility is, what sort of space is available. if there's an intention to refurbish any kind of space or just to adapt what's there currently to make it safe. So we had a route for a standard sort of grab and go line, which we've been developing, which is a touch-free grab and go system, touch-free payment system at the end. You don't need to make contact with anybody while you're doing that. We had a system for contactless ordering on mobile phones, and it's a sort of streamlined lane right to a seating area if you want. You can go and sit down in a restaurant, whether it's a staff canteen or a sort of catering canteen within a college or university or school. And the food's actually brought to you on the table. So again, there's very minimal contact there. We did app ordering where you can go and pick the food up, collect it for more of a B&I sort of setting, business and industry. You can take it back to your desk and eat it there. Or take it home if you're working from home. We did a system where it's a more standard route for people who are more comfortable. So it's a standard kind of hot and cold servery offer with sort of safety hygienic screens up. There's lots of different routes, and they're all built into this same ideal sort of restaurant scenario. And the thought process behind it was so that you wouldn't necessarily take all of these findings and apply them to every single job, but it was kind of a shopping list of maybe 30, 50 items that we came up with, where you can pick and choose, and it'll help our designers to adapt different sort of layouts and designs depending on different clients and just where we are with everything, where the country is with it, and where the end users are, how comfortable people are going to be feeling. So that we've got that knowledge, having gone through that exercise. All of our designers have got that knowledge. Our project management team, we're part of it, so they've got the knowledge, and it's going to help us in the future to think about these issues.
Sure. Okay.
Alexander, we've got some space here if you want to build a prototype of Westminster.
Yeah, well, we have got a few prototypes on the go, so we'll send you some drawings and plans.
We're reaching time for this week, so Gary, we'll just end with a note from you. Alex obviously talked there about what the future of restaurants and kitchens might look like. I'm guessing this is something that you're constantly looking at as well in order to keep your students right up to date with new trends and so on. Are there any aspects from an equipment point of view that you're looking to bring into your kitchens in 2021, or any new kinds of techniques or particular cuisine types you'll be teaching?
It's interesting actually, because Westminster Kingsway College is part of a wider group, the CCCG, which is the Capital City College Group. There's two other large colleges within London that we're part of, this big family. That's 11 campuses. And we're the only campus here in Victoria where we do all of the food service and for students and staff. The rest of the campuses will have a contract caterer coming in. And what we are looking to do eventually is to create our own centralised kitchen production system, to go out to satellite kitchens on these centres and to run it by our students and our own commercial company that we want to fit up. So really, over the next 2 years, this is a big focus for us. Partly because we want to be able to create jobs for students. And we're doing a lot of work with the Goring Hotel at the moment as part of their hotel school that they run for homeless students as well. And we want to be able to create pathways into employment for them too. So this is whole part of a bigger project, but obviously we need to build that infrastructure. And so what we need to do now is to start to consider about where the best places are to have these kitchens, these satellite kitchens within the campuses, and where to have this centralized kitchen as well. What does it look like? What technology we need to use? So there's a massive learning curve here for us as a college group in order to plug this into and to see how we can take it forward, which is why we need to work with people like Alexander.
That's a great note to end on, and also reflective of almost what's happening on the delivery side of the market now, where we see a lot of these dark kitchens and kind of regional kitchens popping up. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops next year. Wish you the best of luck with that, and thank you also to Alex for joining us today and giving your insight. Great to hear from you both, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Market Talk.